And we're off. So it's January. And in January, a lot of us are really focused on goal setting, both in our business lives, in our real estate portfolios, and then also in our family and personal lives. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. I've had quite a few goals over the last decade that just in the last few years, I've really started to feel like have been achieved. I've got a framework that I've been using over the last 10 years to both define my goals, align on the goals, and then achieve them. It's a framework that's worked really well for me, and it's something that I'm going to share with everyone today. It may be helpful for you, or you may have some other version that works well for you, but I think the key to achievement, the key to goal setting, and the key to a happy life is intentionality, right? It doesn't really matter how you get there or what the tools you use, but you can be sure that if you're not thinking about this, if you're not working towards it and you're just letting life happen to you, you're not going to be terribly happy with where you end up. So today, I'm going to share a framework. I'm going to share a framework for defining and clarifying your values. I'm going to share a framework for setting, quantifying, and achieving your goals. And then finally, I'm going to share a framework for deciding whether to delay gratification when you're working towards a big goal or to splurge and do things now. I'm going to bring it all back to me and my experience and my goals. That said, there's going to be a section at the end for questions, and this will be somewhat interactive. I'm going to call on you during the presentation to take 5 minutes or so and to write a few things out, either on your phone notes app or on a piece of paper. So start getting ready for that. It'll be a little bit of dead air time while we do that, but it'll just be 5 minutes or so. And there will be an opportunity at the end for those of you who write out that activity to share what you wrote and then get help from the community as you kind of define and prepare to achieve those goals. And that's step one. For me, step one is always around values. If you are trying to work towards something, it's a lot easier to work towards something when it aligns with who you want to be as a person and how you want to be perceived by others. So for me and for the HouseHack Seattle team, it always starts with values. One tool that we use is this core values deck by Best Self. You can just pull up a list of values on the internet and achieve the same thing. But the point is that by taking all these values together, by looking at this deck and by either alone or with your family, defining which ones are most important to you and paring down again until you get to a list of just like 3 to 4 core most important values for your life, that can really form a little bit of the guiding compass for a lot of the goals that come later. So for me, in my family, we have 4 core values that we've defined. Those are being the best. Essentially, if we're going to do anything, we want to be striving to improve at it constantly. Being the best is a really interesting value because there's 7 billion people on the universe, on the earth. It's probably more in the universe if you believe in aliens. There's 7 billion people in the world, so actually being the best at anything is highly unlikely. But the goal of being the best, coupled with the humility to recognize that it's a goal that ultimately will never be achievable, is something that can really drive you to keep improving. And I think the really interesting thing about being good at something is that it makes it enjoyable. Almost no one likes doing things they're bad at. It's discouraging, it's disheartening. But if you're good at something, even if it's not the most exciting thing, oftentimes you get a lot of joy out of doing it. Another big one for me is legacy. I believe that one of the things that gives me the most joy is planting trees that I may not be alive to witness grow, right? So for me, that could be real estate investing for my family and their future financial health. It could be starting projects that hopefully continue long after I'm gone. But the purpose is that when I die, when I leave this earth, I don't want to have nothing to show for it. I want to put in motion things that add value, that continue long after I'm gone. The last 2 are connection and curiosity. Connection, because it's really important for me to know and be known by those around me, and curiosity, because I think the world is a wonderful place and I'm passionate about exploring it and learning more. So those are my values. We're not going to define our core values today because it's a lot easier to do in a quiet room with your significant others with a deck of cards or something similar. But we are going to do step 2 of this process If you already have values, you can use them to inform step 2. If you don't, you can always do this out of order. And although we'll do step 2 today, you can loop back around and define your core values at a later date. For the folks that are just joining, I said this in the beginning, but we are recording and we will be posting the full video to YouTube in about 48 hours. There'll be a link to YouTube at the end here. So don't worry, anything that you missed, you'll be able to go on YouTube and see after the fact. So after we define and clarify our values, step 2 is the one that a lot of people get excited about. It is defining your goals. And for the purpose of today, a lot of these goals are going to be money focused because it's one of the things that is easiest to define in dollars and cents and easiest to define when you have or haven't achieved them. That said, goals like spending more time with family, getting fit are also really incredible goals. I think the trick is that they're harder to define and quantify. So figuring out a way to put a metric to it so that you know whether you're on the right track or not is important there. So there's a thought exercise that's been incredibly valuable for me when I'm trying to define what I want my life to look like and what I want my goals to be. And that is to pretend like I just won the lottery. And I've got essentially infinite money. I can do whatever I want and make a list of what exactly it is that I want to have, give, buy, do with that money. So we're going to go through this together. I'm going to give people about 5 minutes to go through it. But first, I'm going to get to the end of this slide and all the instructions. So hold tight there. We're going to make that list of what you would do with the money if you just won the lottery. And then we're going to try and pare it down as much as you can. So the first step is a brainstorm. The second step is a little bit of a paring down to get to the point where you have ideally no more than 3, but possibly as many as 5 things that you would do if you won the lottery. And the reason for this is because in my experience, if you have one goal and one singular focus, the universe aligns in a way that it's almost impossible not to achieve that goal. And if you have 5 or 10 goals, more than likely you're going to achieve none of them. There's just a really amazing phenomenon that the things that you focus on seem to happen. And as you split your focus among more and more things, it's less and less likely that those things will happen. So those list of lottery goals are going to be your aspirational goals. And we're actually going to write down the cost per year for all those goals. So if it is something that is, like buying a home, the cost per year would be the monthly mortgage times 12. If it's an actual object, right, the cost per year would just be the cost of that object. If it is starting a foundation or a charity, it would be the cost per year to run that foundation or charity. Putting a dollar amount to it is really helpful. Some things we won't be able to ascribe a dollar amount to, and that's totally okay, but do your best here to write it out. And then finally, we're going to think through what we'll experience and what we'll feel when we actually achieve that goal or get that thing. What are the actual experiences? Say your goal is to buy a waterfront property. What are the actual experiences that you and your family will have on that waterfront property? What are the feelings that you'll have when you achieve it? We're going to try and define the experiences and feelings because the next step is to take those experiences and feelings and to figure out a less expensive way to achieve them, right? So if your goal is to buy a waterfront property, a less expensive way to achieve that feeling of being on the water or the experience of playing with your family on the water or the feeling of peace that you have when you look out on the water would be to, for example, join a boat share and start with some friends borrowing a boat. And then finally, what's an affordable way to achieve those feelings and experiences? It could be going to Golden Gardens today. It could be a lot of different things. So I'm going to give everyone a couple of minutes to write out their list of lottery goals, to define the cost for those goals, and then to try and come up with a less expensive, but still expensive, and then also affordable way to achieve the experiences and feelings that are connected to those. Finally, We won't do this today because we don't have time to go into values too much today. But the final step of this process is actually to ask yourself, does this goal align with your values? And then make adjustments. So I'm going to give everyone about 4 minutes until 5:55. Grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, grab your phone, notepad, and write away. Okay. Feel free to keep working on that list. If it's something that you've never thought about before, it may take a little while, even a few weeks, to kind of define what it is that you want on that list. If it's something that you do think about on a daily, weekly, yearly basis, you may have been done in just a minute or so. But that list is going to be really helpful and is going to form a lot of the basis of the questions that we ask when we're planning for achieving our goals and ultimately living the life that we want to live. So there's going to be an opportunity here when I get to the end for questions where we can pull out things that are on your list, and you can ask me and ask the community questions about how you can get there. I'm going to use myself as an example. So for me, I had three goals that came out during this process. The three goals were to live in a waterfront home with a dock and a sailboat. I actually pulled, since I'm a real estate agent, I pulled a list of every single waterfront home that had sold in King County over the last 3 years and kind of bracketed the price range that they were falling into. And although there were some outliers in the high millions and in the 2 millions, especially in the areas that I was looking at, like Mercer Island and Bellevue and Seattle, almost everything was $3 to $6 million, which was a lot of money. At today's mortgage rates, that might be $250,000 a year, so quite a bit. That's one that, although you wouldn't have to win the lottery to achieve, is definitely a little bit aspirational for a lot of people. That said, a lot of your goals, one of the things I love about writing out what you would do if you win the lottery is that there's a lot of things that you actually probably could achieve today, right? On my list before it got pared down, I had things like get a massage every week. And although that's expensive, if you're working a tech job or if you're successful in real estate, oftentimes that is achievable today, right? So you don't need to win the lottery to get a massage every week. Go snowboarding every week is another one that was on my list before it was pared down. Season passes are expensive, but again, very achievable for many people who have a good W-2 or are doing well financially. Another goal on my list was live abroad for a year. It depends a lot on where you actually live, but I ballparked that might cost about $75,000. And then my last goal on my pared down list was to spend more time with my family. And you may even have more than one goal that's completely free on that, what you would do if you win a lottery list. But for me, that goal could be done today. So because we're focused a little bit on the analytical money side of things, we're going to focus on this live in a waterfront home goals. We talk about it. And when I wrote that list, I came up with feeling and an experience that I wanted to have when I was living in a waterfront home. The feeling was a feeling of peace. I find that when I'm sitting by the water, I find it very peaceful. I have generally high anxiety, like a lot of people who are driven and live in a city like Seattle. I have generally high anxiety and found that the more time I spent on the water, the more at peace I was. Another part of that experience and feeling was the experience of sharing the water with my family. Some of my best memories growing up were my grandparents had a cabin in upstate New York in the middle of nowhere. It didn't have a bathroom for a long time. It now has a bathroom. And we would pack, 15 people into this 2-bedroom cabin. And me and my cousins would just spend all summer swimming in the lake, fishing for crawdads, building sandcastles, and having a good time together. And as I was writing out that was the feeling and experience that I wanted to achieve, I realized that I had not been to my grandparents' cabin for 4 years. And at that point, decided that I was going to start going every single year. I was going to start bringing my family every year so that they could experience the same great memories that I had growing up with their cousins, now that they have cousins. And that trip, although not free, was relatively affordable for our family. 4 plane tickets plus a car rental, plus a couple of grocery store trips for food comes out to about $2,500 a year. So that's something that's affordable that I was able to do today. An expensive goal would be to either buy a boat or join a boat share. And 2 years ago, that's what I did. I joined a boat share so that I would have access to a boat whenever I wanted to. And I've taken the team out on boats. I've taken my kids out on boats. We've gone tubing and just generally had a good time. And although that at $600 a month or $7,400 a year is very expensive, it is a lot less expensive than buying a waterfront home. And finally, the aspirational goal of living on the water. When I actually thought through how long it would take me to save up, enough money to purchase a $3 to $6 million home, what I came to is that it would take me about 3 to 5 years. And at that time, my kids were young, but not yet in school. And I realized that if I really wanted to live on Mercer Island on the water, it would mean continuing on in Seattle for a few years. And then maybe when my oldest was in third grade or fourth grade, pulling him out of school in Seattle and moving to Mercer Island and then putting him in school in Mercer Island. And to bring it back to the last step here of the process, which is asking yourself, does this goal align with my values and adjust? I realized that one of my core values is connection. It's really important to me to build those relationships. I found living in Seattle that it was difficult to build deep relationships with my neighbors. People moved around all the time. There weren't a lot of families in my neighborhood with similarly aged kids. And everyone I talked to said, once your kids are in school, those are the people that you're going to make friends with. Those are the families that you're going to have play dates with. Those are the people that you're going to build relationship with. And I realized that if I started our kids in school in Seattle and then moved to a waterfront home a few years later, the people that I was building deep relationships with and that my kids were going to school with would be much more difficult to continue to nurture relationships with. And then I would have a new cast of people to connect with. And that didn't align with the values. Waiting that long to set down roots or set down roots and then set down roots again didn't sound appealing for me. And that's what pushed us to look at different ways to achieve that goal. So a lot of you know I now live on Pine Lake in Sammamish, and one of the reasons that we moved out here is because we were able to find a home for less than $2 million on the water with a lake, with a dock that we could buy, renovate while we're living here, and take advantage of that experience and feeling that I wanted for me and my family today. And that meant that we were able to move in the summer of 2024, and that my son Charlie was able to start kindergarten in Sammamish in the fall of 2024, which aligned with my goals of trying to build deeper relationships with other families in the area, to be the hub that my kids went to after school and their friends went to after school, and ended up making me much happier, I think, than saving up for that waterfront home on Mercer Island would have. So that brings us to the last step, which is deciding whether to do it now or delay. And not all of our goals have monetary values. Some of them have time costs, like spending time with family, but there is always going to be a trade-off between doing something and waiting, right? So whether it's money, time, or something else, one way that I use to decide whether to take the plunge and do something now or whether to delay gratification is to look at these three buckets that we've created: the affordable version of our goal, the expensive version of our goal, and the aspirational version of our goal, and figure out whether we can do any or all of them today without slowing us down too much as we work towards achieving our other goals. And the reason I put two Pokemon up here is that I like using Pokemon as an example because I grew up playing Pokemon cards and games. And two of my absolute favorites were Magikarp and Abra. And the reason they were my favorites is they took a lot of work and a lot of delayed gratification to grow. But once you leveled them up and once you trade them, they were some of the coolest Pokemon out there, Alakazam and Gyarados. And that has always been my focus. My superpower, I think, is delayed gratification. I'm very comfortable plugging away for years or decades on something with very little rewards if I believe that the rewards are coming. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've been so successful investing in real estate is although many of the people that know me now as a real estate investor have found out about me in the last 2 or 3 years. I've been doing this for a decade quietly, not posting on Instagram, swinging a hammer in beat up houses, house hacking, doing burr investing. And by delaying gratification, I've achieved those goals, but I also think that I haven't followed my own advice as best as I could, because there's a lot of things that I could have done for myself, for my relationship, for my family earlier that I just skipped out on because I didn't do a good job of defining what I wanted to achieve and picking affordable and less expensive ways to achieve that I might be able to experience now instead of delaying gratification forever. So deciding to do or delay oftentimes comes down to money and time. And the way that I decide whether to do a affordable goal or an expensive goal is really, am I comfortable with I guess first, am I still moving towards my aspirational goals? And am I comfortable with any slowdown that this is going to cause towards my aspirational goals? If I really want to live abroad, for instance, is joining a boat share membership and spending that $600 a month going to result in me not saving money so I can't work towards that goal at all? Or is it going to result in me just slowing down a little bit so I can still achieve that goal, but it takes me a little bit longer? And if it's the latter, am I comfortable with the increase in the amount of time it'll take for me to save up money to live abroad? And is it worth it to take advantage of this boat share today to achieve that? And one of the reasons I love money is that it makes the math very easy, right? Things cost a certain amount, and you can calculate how long it'll take to get there based on your income, based on your savings, based on your rental properties. So for me, one of the things that I like to do is I like to look at the properties that I've purchased and how much money they're generating towards my goals. One of the things that I've used to achieve a lot of these goals has been real estate. And one of the amazing things about real estate is that the amount of money it generates tends to go up over time. As an example, this is one of my first house hacks in North Beacon Hill that I purchased for $532,000. I put about $44,000 into renovating it in 2017, and then re-renovated a unit that I hadn't touched much. It's a 3-unit in 2021 for about $30,000. I ended up putting 20% down on this one with some help from family. 3% down financing options are totally workable for house hackers as well. So the amount of cash required for something like this was $60,000 to $150,000. And you can see down here with my numbers that the amount of cash flow that it generates is originally $1,000. Now, even with property management, $1,750. So as we get more analytical with our goals, and as we decide whether to delay gratification or experience them now, it's helpful to look at what you need to change about your W-2 income, what you need to change about your entrepreneurial income, how many rental properties, if you're interested in investing in real estate, you need to purchase to help you achieve those affordable, expensive, and aspirational goals. And rather than just accumulating money for the sake of accumulating money, set yourself the milestone that this is what I want. I've boiled it down to things that both are actually important to me and my family and align with my values. Here's the dollar amount that it takes to get there. And here is tactically what I'm going to do to achieve that, whether it is asking for a raise at work, whether it's purchasing 10 rental properties and paying them off, or some third option. This framework allows you to really kind of boil down and come up with a clear plan of action to help you get to these aspirational goals. So with that, I definitely want to leave time for both questions and for folks to share some of their goals and for us to brainstorm some ways to achieve them. So the floor is yours, y'all. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions that you have. Or I can start picking on people.
Hey, Michael.
Dan?
Oh, I think Brittany came on. Brittany, you
I
go.
did.
You go.
I was going to throw out a hard one for you because you said if you won the lottery and no money was a problem. So I wrote really unrealistic things in the foreseeable future unless I did in fact win the lottery. So I wrote retire my mom, sister, and brother, all their families, and a few select friends.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I wrote down. So to play with that, like boil it down to, okay, well, what does that really mean? Like,
yeah, I think it's helpful to do the lottery thought experiment, but at the same time, what we're looking for oftentimes is more the like feelings and the experiences than the exact result, because most of us won't win the lottery. But removing the constraint of money can be really helpful in brainstorming. So when you say that you want to retire parents, brothers, sisters, family, like what are the feelings that you think they'll have and you'll have when that happens, and then what will your like day-to-day experiences look different? compared to how they are
Yeah,
today.
just if no one had to worry about money at all, and then they could do what they want to do, I could do it. Because the second thing I wrote down was do whatever I felt like doing in the moment every day.
Yeah.
You know,
That's a good one.
just whatever I feel like doing, you know, like I work out. And it's funny you said massage, because I also wrote start each day with a 90-minute massage.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, just you know, and so yeah, it's fun to think about. But yeah, like I guess like what that would look like is supporting, and I do this, but like supporting whatever they're, because they're all, most of the people in my life are small business owners. They own their little,
Yeah.
you know, so we're all pretty, so like supporting in ways that I can, and helping them achieve their own, what they can achieve, and doing what I can without overdoing it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was a fun thought experiment for sure.
Yeah. I
You know,
mean, did you come up with affordable and expensive versions of the aspirational goal?
not that one, because I'm like,
Yeah.
there's no, you know, what am I going to send them $200 a month each or something? Like that. First of all, they wouldn't take it. Second of all, it's not going to move the needle.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean,
but there
we
was
can
one.
brainstorm a couple of affordable and expensive options,
I
because I
mean,
think that
here's a better one, because that I think actually got my wheels turning. So I wrote hire a chef, personal trainer, house cleaner, marketing manager, personal stylist, interior designer, and then of course a personal assistant to manage all of these people, because I wouldn't be able
yeah.
to. And as I was looking, I'm like, yeah, just taking some of the day-to-day stuff that we all have to do. Like maybe I can't have
Yeah.
a full-time house cleaner, but I could have a house cleaner come like twice a month.
Yeah. Do you have
Stuff
a
like
house
that.
cleaner right now,
Yeah.
Phoebe?
No,
Okay.
I don't. I have in the past, but my house is very, I've downsized significantly. So I have like a 1-bedroom apartment because I wanted to free up money to do other things. It takes me all of 2 hours to clean. So it's just like, what's the point? But, you know, why not just have them come through? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing.
I mean, that would be like the affordable option, right? Is probably hiring a house cleaner, because especially if you had them on a 2-week cycle rather than
Yeah.
every week, it would be, not a lot of money. And then, realistically, as someone that has had virtual assistants in the past, like there are also maybe expensive but not aspirational versions of that, especially if you take advantage of, a more unique way to achieve those goals.
Oh yeah, and even like a personal chef, like you could get the meal plans and things that they have. Anyway,
And what's the feeling or the experience that having your your Downton Abbey full of staff?
Yeah, just a full staff around my personal life. Yeah, it just frees me up to just do whatever I feel to do, like take care of my business, which is like no one can really work out for you. But other than that, like most things, so then I can just really just do like, okay, today I feel like doing this, let me do that. And so I guess that what that boils down to in like today I can, and what I try to do is, have a very healthy work-life balance, make sure I'm working when I'm working and then not overworking. I don't know, probably this whole group tends toward the overwork side of that spectrum, myself included. So it's like, you know what? No, like you can't keep it's unsustainable. So anyway, fun exercise, Michael.
Yeah, and I think although we focus on money a lot of times the money isn't like the affordable option costs $0, right? The affordable option might be letting everyone know that from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. you're going to be totally unreachable, turning your phone off and actually doing the most important thing at the moment, whether it's working out or working on your business, and literally blocking everyone else in the way that people with FU money can block everyone else from reaching them because it doesn't matter. Or with retiring your parents and your friends, right? Especially if they're entrepreneurs. I think I've I've realized that I don't actually know what most of my friends do for a living, like on an actual level. Like I know what their job title is, but I have no idea what they do. And I have no idea if I could actually help them and what help they would need, right? So like especially if you're friends with a lot of other entrepreneurs, having a good idea about like what small thing could move the needle in their business, whether it's an online review or a referral or what have you, and actually doing that every day, although it's not like retiring them with lottery winnings, accomplishes the same feeling, which is this feeling of security and that you're the kind of person that can take care of those around you. Um, and this feeling of being a giver, right? Doesn't have to be with millions or billions of dollars.
Yeah.
So I actually think the retire my parents, friends, brothers, that one actually is one of the most common goals when I'm talking with clients that they have around real estate investing. And I actually think it's a really cool one because there's a lot of little steps in between where they are today in retirement that you could do for these people and be helpful.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny because my sister, because we all own a business, my brother, my sister, and I, we're supposed to have a Zoom call and set up, somehow we can like have family trips that couple as business write-offs. She's got some whole strategy like if we're gonna do. So yeah, it's lots of ways to do things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I've been talking a lot, but this doesn't have to be one-on-one. Feel free to unmute yourself if anyone else has something to add. I'd love to hear some other aspirational goals as well and dive into like the affordable, expensive versions of them and talk about the feelings, especially if you feel like your aspirational goal doesn't have affordable or expensive options, or you feel trapped in this delayed gratification hamster wheel and don't think there's a way that you can achieve the feelings or experiences that you want to achieve in any kind of realistic time horizon.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
So, I was just gonna say that it's really cool to hear, someone else's goals and aspirations and how you've achieved, your goals, and it gives me some good ideas.
Yeah.
But what you said about legacy really speaks to me. Things that'll continue, beyond just ourselves.
Yeah.
So my question is, so like, how do you plan tangibly for legacy? Do you have any recommendations for that?
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. I think it depends on the legacy, right? Like the principle of legacy is really just that all of us as human beings are both like finite in the sense that we're all going to die, and we all want to be infinite in the sense that we never want to die. And that varies depending on the person. Some people like me have a very, very strong aversion to death, and that results in them being somewhat hyperactive during their life. And some people have a less strong aversion, and maybe they're a little bit more comfortable with the fact that they are at some point going to decay and die. But for me, when I start thinking about legacy, I think about it on two fronts. I think about it as like relational and educational legacy, and then I think about it as like money and business legacy. So on the money and business side, right, what that means is that I'm both trying to earn enough money to achieve my lifestyle goals and aspirations, and then also to generate enough money that there is excess and leftover, right? Because if I'm just taking care of my own needs and the needs of my family, that doesn't really leave that much room for using money as a legacy. So that comes into play in the way that I purchase properties and like build businesses. On the like education and relationship side, I'm trying to think about the relationships that I can like impact around me, and then also specifically since I have kids, the lessons that I want to pass on to my kids, and trying to pass them on sooner rather than later. A pretty core influence in my life is the fact that my wife's dad, who was in very good shape, passed away from a heart attack in his early
Oh.
50s as a complete surprise. And at that time, he was actually halfway across the country because he had semi-retired, ran out of money, and couldn't find a job in California, so relocated to Minnesota to find work while his wife was living in California. And thankfully, she was with him when he passed. But the fact that for the last 2 years of his life, they were essentially in a long distance relationship so that he could work a W-2 job when he had hope to be done with that stage of his life is super impactful, right? I don't think if he knew that he was going to die at 50, 53 years old, that's how he would have spent the last 2 years of his life. So focusing both on not finding yourself in that situation where your money has forced you to make a decision that isn't the best thing for your life and family, and then also recognizing that you don't actually know when the last 2 years of your life are.
Yeah.
And up to a point, treating every year as potentially one of the last years of your life.
Yeah.
There's a really great, I have a couple favorite quotes, and one of them is, I think it's a Confucius quote, and it's, a man has two lives, and the second begins when he realizes he only has one. And I think that is a huge part of legacy, is recognizing that you don't know how much time you have, and that you're building for the future regardless of how much time you have, while also being fully aware that you don't want to die leaving things undone.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear about your loss. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
You know, that phrase, is it memento mori or something like
Yeah.
that? Remember death. It's like, you know, when we think about legacy, it helps to give us that why we're delaying gratification, why we're grinding and trying to hustle, you know. And so I just thought that was really good that you brought that up. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan. It's a good question. For you, I'll flip it back on you. Is legacy a core value for you, and what does that look like?
Yeah, man. That is 100% my why, my reason, you know, is my family, my faith. You know, I would love to win the lottery and be able to, you know, spend my days doing the kind of work that I want to do, you know, serving God, helping people to, you know, reach their potential. Yeah, if I could get myself into a position where I'm financially free and help my friends and my family get to the point where, you know, they are also financially free, so that we could, you know, live out the lives that we want, you know, instead of having to, like what Thatch always says, wake up with a big, you know, shotgun to the back of your head, as he says, you know, that would be, that would be the dream. And then building legacy from there, leaving something lasting for my kids, and seeing them become happy and healthy and you know, adjusted, you know, individuals living out their God-given purpose. You know, that would be legacy to me. And you know, helping my family and helping others. So yeah, that's my why.
Nice.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for helping us to get there by sharing and you know, just inspiring us, you know, with your own story and with you know, with the things that you've accomplished. So it helps to think through a lot of these step 1 and step 2. So very cool.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm very conscious of is that am not terribly intelligent. I'm not terribly gifted. I'm not terribly anything. If anything, I'm terribly consistent.
Mm.
And I think the cool thing about consistency is that it's very achievable to
Mhm.
anyone, right? You don't
Mm.
have to go to
Yeah.
you don't have to go to Harvard to be consistent. You don't have to be born into generational wealth to be consistent. You just need to
Yeah.
define what it is you're working towards and then wake up and
Yeah.
do it, which I think is one of the cool opportunities available to us. It levels the playing field quite a bit. Martha, you've got your hand raised. What's on your mind?
Yeah, thank you. Just speaking of time, and I guess you had mentioned kind of a delayed gratification hamster wheel. I'm currently in a house hack, and I have moments where I thought like, oh my gosh, my goal is to free up time.
Mhm.
I'd love to quit my W-2, but in a sense, some days I think I've just created another job, which is taking away my time, and then I just like have to pause and reflect, like, isn't this working against what I'm aiming for?
Yeah.
And with your house hacking experience, did you reassess on a regular basis? Did you have like monetary goals that like, with this house hack, I want to achieve this to then move on to the next? Or how did you break that down so that you just didn't feel like you were just like making more work for yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what number property is this for you, Martha? Is this property number one or is it farther
I'm
down?
number two, and we've got a nest egg that, I mean, the goal is to be in my own house. I guess I joke with my friends, someday I'm going to live in a house by myself. And I see the value in house hacking. But we have a young family, and I feel like we've outgrown this model.
Mhm.
But then also see what it's done for us. And so maybe I personally am having a hard time letting go of the asset of like being able to house hack. Yeah, so ready to potentially move on to three, but maybe have reservation that, I don't want it to, personally, I don't want it to be a house hack because I've been doing it for 10 years that yeah, it's,
Yeah. And are you in the Seattle area,
yeah.
Martha? Yeah.
Yeah, West Seattle.
Nice. When you say that someday you'll have your own house, is there a big difference in like what your family life looks like or what your day-to-day life looks like once you stop house hacking that you're looking forward to?
Just privacy, I guess.
Yeah.
And just like not having to, be mindful and cognizant of other people, sharing a wall with
Yeah.
us or a floor. And I mean, I don't even have ideas of or fantasies about like, the size. I mean, I only have one child, so and
Yeah.
we will only have one child, so we don't need a huge house. I just think of the day that we'll have our own house.
Yeah. And what challenges do you see to getting that now? Right? Is there a reason why you should be continuing to grind towards that as a future aspirational goal versus pulling the trigger now and having that, single family home with yard for your family that doesn't generate any income?
Personally, I feel like, and I probably just have to comb through the numbers again, but we live uh, reasonably for free
Yeah.
with the house hack, and that's a hard thing for me to let go.
Yeah.
Is the idea of like I'm leaving a system where I don't pay my mortgage, for the most part, and then to move into a house where like now I'm paying a full mortgage, and then how does that like relate to progress towards leaving my W-2? And then that's where I get stuck. Is I feel like having my own primary home will then lend to I'm just regressing in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I think really interesting. I think that you get used to whatever you get used to, and living for free is a nice thing to get used to. It's a lot
Yeah.
better than getting used to like keeping up with the Joneses type of
Mhm.
spend, but it's still something that you're used to that once you stopped your savings and your other, financial life would change pretty significantly. I can talk to a little bit of how I looked at that question because I do currently live for the first time in my life in a house without a house hack. Um, for me, it was really helpful because living for free was a primary driver for me and my family too. It was really helpful to do the math and recognize that my portfolio could still allow me to live for free once we upgraded. And even though we weren't generating income from this property, the net total of our real estate portfolio was still breaking even or generating income. So we took the plunge a little bit earlier than we probably could have if we were really looking at it through a hard-nosed financial lens. But through a family lens, the fact that our oldest was getting ready for kindergarten made it a really good time to move. And we ate all of our cash flow with this house, right? So we're still living for free, but across our portfolio, we are now cash flow neutral instead of cash flow positive. And I was comfortable with that. In fact, even to get cash flow neutral, I did have to pay down some higher interest rate debt. So it wasn't something that I achieved on day one. It was something that after purchasing this home in July, I spent the last 6 months working towards achieving and have now achieved. And for me, when I did the mental calculus of the loss of security of large amounts of income from a rental portfolio versus my family goals versus staying in my job longer, it penciled out where this felt like the right decision. But a core part of that was that I did not feel the need to quit my job immediately, right? I think if I was trying to stop being a real estate agent and the team lead for HouseHack Seattle, it might not have been the right move to use my cash flow for this property. But the fact that I was comfortable continuing to work and believed that my income would continue to grow, it was worth the rub.
Sure. That's good insight. Thank you.
Yeah. I've got a hand up from Jay too. Do you want to share, Jay?
Yes, appreciate you, Michael. I just had a question, more so just on resources, if there was any books you'd recommend, or maybe there's a social influencer that you turn to for good info whenever they create content, or just any sources available you wouldn't mind sharing or passing along.
Yeah, that's funny that that Dan mentioned memento mori, essentially the principle that you are going to die and being aware of and cognizant of your own death. Stoicism in general is probably one of the bigger influences on my life alongside Christianity and my family. And for me, there's a lot of really good, business podcasts and really good influencers. I find that I tend to jive the most with folks that have like a stoic outlook, like Ryan Holiday has some really good books. And Tim Ferriss is a legend and has some really great podcasts, as well as, the 4-Hour Work Week was a huge 10 years ago, actually, I guess. Yeah, 10 years ago, or whenever it came out, was a huge influence, maybe 20 years ago now, on me wanting to be an entrepreneur. I also consciously, over the last, 5 years of my life, tried to find and cultivate friendships with more entrepreneurial people, because for me, a lot of these goals that I have are entrepreneurial and real estate related, and being able to share that with other people is super helpful. I think there's a lot of, influences and books that you can rely on, but at the end of the day, the people that you can actually interact with in a two-way way compared to a one-way way are going to have a lot more influence on your life oftentimes. So the real hack is if you can find people that breathe into your life the way that a book does, that you can actually have a real relationship with, right? Like that's the goal.
Appreciate it.
Good question though, Jay. Edmund, hey buddy.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. My headphones been off today. It's so weird. So yeah, I appreciate the call here. I didn't really catch the first part too much, but a lot of what people were talking about, and what I could tell on the tail end of your conversation was that like the inspirations or things that we aspire for. And I know of, you and I've talked in different ways before, and like clearly from your jump from where you are now and going into moving out to Sammamish, I think that was a big one, right? So my question or thought to you on this is like big aspiration wise. So we're in this new year. My thinking is our goal right now, we have a single family home, which we're building out to ADUs. And like you mentioned, this is kind of a first time going back to the idea of house hack or not house hacking, because now it's a single family home. There's not really a place to house hack that, but just to live on our own, right? Until those are built out. So the aspiration for this year, kind of thinking big picture, is that, well, one, we want to build out those ADUs. So 2 of them is going to be a pretty big chunk, right? Second is we don't plan on staying where that house for too long, because the same kind of model, like you said, not really feeling that it would be comfortable to live in a place that we want to raise our kids in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So if the idea is to buy another place by the year's end, but also building these out, and also hoping to start having a family soon, all of those are very financially big decisions, right? Where does your thought take yourself? Is like, do you push out the idea that you need to have that next property because your kids probably won't be going into school anytime soon or anything like that, so you're not really having to set them up into a school district that you want or whatnot? Or do you just say, hey, we're just going to figure it out and make it happen?
Yeah. So to clarify your question, Edmund, are you trying to think about like when you two kind of start preparing to flip that switch from home is primarily a like financial consideration to home being more of a family consideration, or is there a little bit of a different question there that I missed?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So like,
Yeah.
One kind of almost an income driven question, but then also the second one being, like you said, making that switch to decide, okay, where do we start to decide where we're going to be after living in this house, which is going to be currently a, just a primary until it becomes an investment when we move out, make it a rental, right?
Yeah. I think asking the question of others is helpful to get perspective, but also one thing that I wish that I had done more of is sit down with Jess, my wife, and like whiteboard out what we want our life to look like. And we've got some old whiteboards that are just hilarious because the plans that we had like went out the window. For instance, we were going to do a road trip from Seattle all the way down to South America and essentially go until the road stops in, I guess, Panama it is. And then Zika happened and Jess got pregnant with Charlie, our first. And our doctor's like, absolutely not. You should not drive to Mexico right now. So the process of whiteboarding out your goals is, I think, more important for exploring and experimenting about what life could look like than it is for actually following that roadmap, because life is messy and the roadmaps we make oftentimes aren't actually the paths that we travel. I would say that if you guys can work together on defining what it is that the milestones that you're working towards are and what timeline makes sense for your family, that can be really helpful. And oftentimes, if you're thinking about having kids, school is a big one. I've been really pleased with my decision of like essentially hustling until Charlie, my oldest, got into kindergarten and until I had, our last baby. And now trying to spend more time with family, especially because this is probably our last little one and he's 9 months old now. And I want to experience everything about having a 9-month-old baby because it might not happen again for our family. That said, I also think that the life is kind of interesting in that if you put enough pressure on yourself, you may not enjoy it in the moment, but you can create something that you probably didn't realize that you could create. My real estate business really blew up in 2020 when I was living in a 200 square foot unit with me, Jess, our dog, and Charlie, our 6-month-old. Previously, Charlie was born into a construction site where we were doing drywall work, and you better believe that I finished up that HouseHack fast and got it safe and livable for a infant. And we were doing this big renovation of a home in Beacon Hill, and we were house hacking it. And I realized that we were going to run out of money in 30 days. So we would either need to fire all the contractors in 30 days and figure out a way to borrow or take a HELOC or something, keep the project going, or I needed to make a lot of money quickly. And that was the point where I increased my income, my like W-2 or real estate agent income, from a slightly above average point to a like significantly high number. And I credit a lot of my success in real estate to that like high pressure situation about realizing that I either needed to build a massive business in 30 to 60 days, or I needed to really scramble to keep a home that was livable for me and my young family. So balance planning with an ability to put yourself in tough situations and bet on yourself that you're the kind of man or woman that can get yourself out of tough situations. Because I think if you always, plan things out and make sure you don't take any steps until you're completely financially ready, you won't put yourself in a situation to surprise yourself. And I know that when I put myself in tough situations where I need to surprise myself, something happens and it clicks and I step up, and it's been good.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I appreciate that reminder. And I think it kind of fits well with, as you know, like we all write their 10-year letters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we know a lot of that is kind of thought out of in the weeds of what we want it to look like. But the lead up of that, obviously that 1-year letter is going to be that key part, right? Like what's that, if that's the run up now to make that happen, like you said, you kind of just build up that fire once things start to hit the gear that you need to go to make that happen. So
yeah. And I think the cool thing about the 10-year letter is that if you're doing it right, you should be treating life like an experiment and experimenting along the way. One reason I really like the affordable, expensive, aspirational approach is that if you're going to spend a decade building towards something, it better be something that is actually important, because you don't have that many decades to spend on Earth. And it is really helpful to take an affordable or expensive action that gives you similar feelings on the road to that aspirational goal, to make sure that that aspirational goal still feels valid. On my slide, I crossed out live abroad for a year, and it's not because I'm never going to do it. It's because I moved to Bali for 3 months in 2023. And although it was an incredible experience with my family and I had a lot of fun, me and Jess realized that living abroad actually isn't something that we want. We might do it anyway and we might enjoy it, but it's not, if we had to make a list of the 3 things that we want to work towards, it's not one of those 3. So rather than really kind of work towards a living abroad situation, we were able to take a 3-month trip and experience what it might be like to live abroad, and check that off the list before we spent any more time working towards that goal.
no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Quick question on that one, like is there an age that makes sense to do that if you wanted to, like with kids? Because obviously you had 2, so you had your hands full, but
Yeah. I think that it depends, but me and Jess didn't travel that much before having kids, because again, we were like delaying gratification so hard, which may have been a mistake in some ways. So for us, the age was any age, because we just realized that it wasn't going to get that much easier as time went on, and we'd been convincing ourselves that next year was our year for too long. That said, I think the hardest age that I'm aware of right now with kids 0 through 5 is 3. 2 to 3 is they're functional in that they can run around and talk, but they don't have good self-control yet. So they want what they want and they throw fits constantly. And it can be really difficult to be in like a tough travel situation with that kind of child. Anything less than 1 is easy. It's essentially traveling with an extra suitcase that you need to feed, change, and birth. So if you have a less than 1-year-old, I say pop them in a baby Bjorn and go.
that's awesome. Well, I appreciate your time.
Yeah. With that, we're going to close it. We are going to do more of these webinars just to kind of mix up our monthly happy hour. So there'll be more opportunities like this. We're going to get the YouTube video up as well and send a follow-up email to everyone. Feel free to drop comments on the YouTube video. The link to our YouTube channel is right there. So if you pull out your phone and scan it, it'll pop up the HouseHack Seattle YouTube where we're going to post this. Hit subscribe. You'll be able to get a notification when it goes live in a couple of days. Finally, I know that we at one point had 35 people. Some people have dropped off on here, but if you felt like there was too many people and you didn't feel comfortable talking, this QR code is a QR code to book a call with our team. The questions it asks are real estate focused because I didn't create a separate QR code for this event. That said, if you just fill it out with random answers and write in the notes that you want to talk about goals, me or a member of my team would be happy to hop on a 15-minute call with y'all and do some more of this brainstorming. So with that, I hope all y'all are off to a prosperous 2025. And I look forward to seeing what we all achieve. Cheers.